stars. I'm gonna give you my heart.
Take you guys on a journey, and yeah, just sit back, relax, and just empty your mind a bit, and just be open to, just if you're familiar with this material, if not, just sit and yeah, we can discuss it. But and then I think a few more people are going to be joining too, but we can get started. So I thought it'd be fun just to go around, do an introduction. So just a little bit on your background. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing, I also believe everyone that shows up on these kind of intimate workshops, like, are supposed to be here. It's like a constellation, especially studying quantum physics. It's like entanglement and how we're all connected in chords. But it's so special when you have, I mean, this is like a pioneering kind of new science, as they say, even though I don't agree with that. But this is leading edge stuff. So I think anyone that shows up to here is like really, we're dreamers, we're visionaries, we're pioneers. So I feel like I can talk a level of honesty with everyone on this call. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing your background, when did you awaken to our reality, a consciousness of our reality? And my favorite question I ask my clients when we start working: do we create our own reality? And again, be brutally honest with it. You can pick 85%, 50%, but I just want to know where you are, where you think if we create a reality or not. So who is up to go first?
I love these questions. It's such a good reminder and so nice to just have a moment to reflect. But I would say I woke to my reality in 2015. Um, and it was very abrupt. I think I feel like I was living with my eyes closed, and then all of a sudden I had a big, traumatic event happen. And then it was like I saw the world with totally different eyes and with a new perspective. And I also felt that I could feel a direct connection to spirit that I didn't have before that. And so that's a little bit about my background. And yes, I do believe we create our own reality, but I believe we co create it. And I don't know if I've thought about percentages. That's an interesting idea, but I know that I believe that our minds and our thoughts are very, very powerful, as is our energy and that we emit. And absolutely believe in the law of attraction and quantum physics. And so I can say with confidence that we create our own reality, but there is a co-creation element. And I think that some specific experiences in my life probably brought me more into the percentage of like, oh, this is total co-creation. I'm not in control in this moment. And so there's been a lot of learning there, and always open to learning more around healing my trauma, to be more open to how much I do create my own reality.
Gorgeous. Thank you for sharing. Who's next?
I am working in healthcare, and I'm from the Southeast, but I currently live in California. When did I awaken to my reality? I would say it's very different than what Brittany was saying. For me, it was like kind of different. I was thinking back and I was like, okay, at this point in my life, this is what became apparent to me. And at this other point, this is what it felt like. And I would say, like, in childhood, I was really connected to nature. So that brought me a lot of what currently informs my current reality. I was brought up in a religious household, so I did feel connection to spirit, and I still do, and just it's evolved over time. And then in my 20s, I started practicing yoga. Do we create our own realities? I think that's something right now that I'm trying to lean into, trusting that that's true. I really love what Brittany said about co-creating, because that actually makes it feel so real. I'm like, oh yeah. And I love what you said about, like, at this point, And you said something, Brittany, that made me realize, like, when I can take action, or when I can physically do something, sure, that feels very much like I'm co-creating, or that I'm creating my own reality. And then even just dreaming up and like planning toward goals or having conversations feels like I'm creating my own reality. That energy seems to lead somewhere. But I would like to believe it more.
So I live on the island of Kauai, and lived here about 5 years, originally from New Mexico. I was not raised with religion, so I would say that my path, the spiritual path that I have been on lately, has been to find my spirituality and my connection to source and what I believe in. And that's been a really beautiful journey. And in some ways, I think I was given a clean slate, which I'm really grateful for. I wasn't indoctrinated with a whole bunch of religious views. So I feel like I've been able to kind of fill in with what feels most authentic to me. I've had two parents who are black sheep of the family, and very kind of, self-development, soul-seeking, conscious parents. And so that's always been there in my general life. So I've heard a lot of, like, growing up, careful what you say, you create your own reality, energy speaks louder than words, like all these things. And I believed it to an extent, and I believe it more than ever now, as as my spiritual journey is unfolding. And just like Brittany, I also had, a life jolting experience that really brought me to my knees. And I think that was a pivotal point in my awakening. And that was about 6 years ago or so. And I also believe very much that we do create our own reality. And I also believe it is a co-creation. And I just want to say, I have even more proof today than I did last week or even the week before on how much I create my own reality, and how when I do the work within, and when I really do the shifts and change within, and I take radical self-responsibility instead of putting it out into the world with blame and shame and resentment and anger and all the circumstances that could have been different, if I just take that full radical responsibility and I really make the shifts, I have literally seen my life change around me in an instant, like overnight, to just these phenomenal degrees. And it just makes me feel so much that, like, you really do create your own reality. Like, the shifts come from within. And I just feel I'm in a really empowered place. So these are really great questions. Thank you.
And we just began the workshop. We haven't got started yet. Thank you. I so appreciate that.
I'm a firm believer, and I know that everything happens for a reason. I believe in destiny. And I moved here to the state 18 years ago. I took the chance. I met my husband in one day, decided to get engaged, and we've been married for 18 years now. And I enrolled at Pepperdine, graduated. My path, I think God is willing to do that. Like I said, I'm a firm believer. I'm Christian. I brought up like that. And we do create our reality. At least 90%. I believe in that.
You're giving me a percentage. I love it.
I'm into business. I'm in business. So I love figures.
Let's talk about KPIs and percentages here. I love it. Thank you.
With all of you today. So my name is Toby, and I was born and raised Catholic, and went to Catholic school. and had an ongoing conversation with God between like 14 and 16, in which I was asking why there was suffering. Like, why are people suffering? Like, I've read these stories of benevolence. Please explain what I'm seeing in the world. And you read about epiphanies, and I really did feel like I was struck by lightning. And when I was 16, I was sitting in the living room in my parents' home, and all at once, I felt illuminated in a way that was bigger than me and bigger than my body. And resoundingly, I heard the words, "People choose to suffer." And in that moment, I had a faith crisis and an ongoing dissatisfaction with needing to talk to a man about what I wanted to do with God. Had led me to a general disease in practicing Catholicism. And so I have a lot of respect for people that choose that path, though my path led me to explore a lot of different things. So I'll be 53 next week, and I am a soul purpose activator. And at this point, I would say 100% and co-creation. Though I'm also willing to go a bit further than that and suggest that we don't exist in the space between the inhalation and the exhalation, that when we inhale, we connect with our divine blueprints. And then there's this like magical space of still point. And so much can happen there. It's like the everythingness of nothing and the nothingness of everything. And then when we exhale, we literally remember ourselves in form. And this happens so quickly that we imagine that the forms around us are permanent and static, or that we might think of ourselves as vessels being filled with spirit. Though I take a lot of faith in this, because I know that because I connect to divine current multiple times a day, I'm never the sum total of my last decision or choice, or whether it was good or it was bad, or the best choice I could make or the worst choice that I could make. I know that I always have an opportunity to reconnect with the purification stream that is my birthright, and that is uniquely key-coded to me as a fractal expression of source in form.
Wow.
I live in Ohio, and I have 3 kids, and my youngest will be graduating from high school, and I work as a practitioner with clients. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone.
Born and raised in New York, ran away into the military at a young age. I think that was, I don't think that was my first quantum jump, changing trajectories. And yeah, the hero's journey started thus far. And after the military, 8 years active service, 8 years of service, then moved back to New York, did the finance accounting thing. I woke up. My awakening was, trying to remember, probably 2011, 2012. I started really getting frustrated with my life experience, because I was like, dude, God, universe, spirit, like, I am doing the checklist. I grew up in a traumatic household. I left, I'm on this journey, I'm doing the work, and but still really caught up in the material world. I was so confused of, like, going to the military, getting empowered, learning leadership, then moving back to New York, doing the Wall Street thing. I'm like, this is success. And I was actually miserable. I was partying my ass off. Like, I just was, I had this big void. I had a lot of depression, anxiety. So for the first time, I remember I was sitting on Wall Street, and I said, okay, I was like, I was really getting into quantum physics. I was really into philosophy my whole life. And I was just like, dude, universe, like, what separates us from Albert Einstein? And I'll never forget, I've never talked to the universe like that before. I did not grow up religious whatsoever. So I didn't really have that connection. So the universe came right back and gave me meditation as a practice. And really the answer was Einstein used his right and left brain, both hemispheres, and I started meditating. And as soon as I started meditating, like I just dropped into this whole other ecosystem. I didn't even New York had this spiritual community that I found. So a whole new world was opened up to me. And then I spent, time in Central and South America, and then I was traveling, but by myself for the first time, really going on these eat, pray, love journeys and learning other cultures and starting to really feel into the journey versus just in my head reading about it. So that was like the big shift for me. And I 100% I do believe we create our own reality, even though I don't agree with my reality all the time, but I do learning, quantum physics for me is just one lens out of like 30 million that I've studied under the sun, and how the common denominators and how I can see how I can manifest things just from like my ancestors or, belief society, things I observe, and how it can kind of feed into my energetic field. So, but I do believe that we do create our own realities, and this is what we're going to talk about today. So thank you everyone for sharing too. I really appreciate that. List I've been comprising through the years. This is from especially working like in New York finance, and then seeing clients and just case studies and workshops. I'm always making this list of old paradigm attributes. And, it's like some of this sounds like personality traits, but I feel like, these are behaviors that created a belief system for us in an old paradigm, like an old way of being. So I just want to kind of share the list with you guys and see your thoughts, and and if you had any other observations, and then we'll just talk about like what's part of the new paradigm. So just if you can read the list, but a few that really stick out is the slave, we're being punished, scarcity. My favorite is Darwin. It's like, learning about Darwin at a young age in elementary school, survival of the fittest. I feel like that is capitalism at its best. And that's just like how we always look at like what we don't have, and there's not enough resources. So I feel like that's a huge one in the old paradigm. And then we're just getting by from that. And God outside of us, that's huge, in the religion, in the more structured old paradigm religion model. A little bit more, always very surrounded by a lot of women, women clients, women case studies. I'm too much. That's one that I think a lot of us have experienced, at least at themes I'm seeing from the old paradigm as we move into this new paradigm. One of mine that I've been working on, I feel like for a very long time, is that money means my worth and the driver to everything. I just grew up in a family that everything was about money, like every move, every step. And that's just, growing up in New York as well. It was just, everything was about money. So it's like every move that I made, it's a neurosis about money. So for me, that was really something that I had to do a lot of work around. The victim mentality too, I think that was really big in the old paradigm, just like not having control, not being a co-creator, not being part of this design and creating. So you can see this list, and competition, that goes back to Darwin as well. And also the Maya, the illusion, like getting caught up in our reality, to think this is it in the physical world, that's all there is. So anyone have thoughts on the old paradigm?
I just love your idea, Linz, of keeping a list and kind of keeping track of it, because it's so much of kind of healing and moving beyond that is just being aware of it, right? And so when it's kind of kept top of mind, it's like you can track it and kind of also be mindful of just not placing so much focus there. So I just appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important to take inventory and not judge it. Be like, okay, this is just kind of a common theme we're seeing as an old reality. So thank you for that.
I think to Brittany's point, and this idea of keeping things top of mind, is the idea of a paradigm is it's opaque to us. Typically, we don't realize that we're operating within superstructures. And, I'm sure all of us run into people every day who just take the pragmatics of having a conversation, like you can't talk to them about should we adjust our volume or stand in different places while we're having this conversation? There's a lot of people who just have the conversation. So much in the same way, when we're talking about these paradigms, they're invisible, like, for example, capitalism. Like, I don't think people know what capitalism is. So we talk about a lot of the traces or residue of a system that we see all around us, and we might name its effects different things, but I think in a very strategic way, we don't know how to say, oh, it's the economic system in which we're operating that's creating much of this that we're noticing around us. And that's I don't want to say that's intentional, like it's being planned that way, but keeping the nuances of the list that you put, that you shared, Lindsay, and these elements in our conversation where we're talking about the assumptions that we're making about reality is very much a part of the citizen's action, if you will, that is an important component of creating openings for novelty.
Amazing. Would anyone like to chime in about what they are seeing as a new paradigm, or you haven't seen it yet, but this is what you think you have to know like what you don't want, so you know what you do want. So I guess for me too, the common belief too, for now, moving into what I'm seeing in the new paradigm is a lot of you mentioned right away that like, yes, I do believe to a certain extent that we create a reality. And I mean, most of it, I was not brought up with that belief, and I don't think that was a popular belief. So I think one would be like, yes, we can either co-create, or learn how to dance with the universe and have more sense of ownership and control in our life, right? So would anyone else like to chime in about that?
So maybe just looking at like turning this on its head. So, I wonder, I mean, there's probably a lot of things that we touch into every day, and really, I feel like right now it's, we have a lot of invitations, and I think one of them is to really decide where we want to place the hot solar gaze of our attention. And I think that's what part of what you're talking about here today, Lindsay, is like, where do we want to focus? Like, if I stop watching the craptastic news channels that are just, like I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I was a dork in high school. I'm a dork still. But we would go into church basements to listen to eyewitness accounts of what was going on in like Nicaragua around things that were getting blacked out on the news circuits, so it's not like, woo, really, we're not getting the real story. It's like, well, yeah, okay. However, to what extent can I disengage from many of the contemporary, channels of information, and just, if we all did that en masse, would that fall away? So when we talk about energy flows where attention goes, and do we feel, how do we feel about these ideas? I mean, I think what we're really talking about is like, if we pulled a whole bunch of our collective awareness out of certain things, would they just like scab over and fall off? Would they just disappear? Would they go away? I mean, what would happen? I mean, if we were to scale up and really talk about community building, because we're at a place where it's pretty kooky, and, really it would serve us to start talking about like, what does it look like to plan for small groups in the after times, And again, I mean this in a very like leitmotif, like, how do we build community and go on? How do we direct our gaze? I mean, can we unplug? And I just like playfully put that out there, as a practical sense, like, how many of the people here watch the regular news channels? I mean, or was that like ages ago you stopped? I mean, I get news from other people, I'm like, we'll see how that goes. But I think that's a practical example of what we're talking about in terms of the old paradigm. I don't think anything serves me by connecting to a lot of sources of information, for example, that at one time I don't think I would have gone without connecting to.
Amazing. Okay. So believing is seeing. I feel like this is one of the key principles of the new paradigm, physics, as I call it. Love to is what is expected tends to be realized. So if you expect the best, you get the best, and vice versa, right? Imagination. This is a really key concept. You hear about visualization, imagination, but as I go deeper with this topic, I just see how this is, I mean, our imagination has been called godlike, right? So this is like our superpower, our visualization. So to not take that lightly when you do visualizations and that is something that I think we're really waking up to, just the quantum computer of our brain. So your mind always does what it thinks you want it to do. So Einstein always talks about that, right? Being a slave to the mind. So it's like, you know, we're learning how to control the mind and not be a victim to the mind. Your thoughts have babies. I know this very well. So you really just want to be in control of your mind. Your mind works to move you from pain to pleasure. And it responds to pictures in your head and the words you say to yourself. Your mind learns by repetition. So again, believing is seeing, and it loves the familiar, right? So if something's new to you, but you keep doing this work over and over again, it becomes the familiar. And this is your drop into a new ecosystem, a new paradigm, right? So this is the work. This is why we have to keep up with it. Otherwise you fall victim back to that list of the old paradigm. And this is why I make that list for myself, for clients. It's like, hey, you're just falling back to an old program, right? And we make our beliefs and our beliefs make us. I mean, that is just so powerful, so simple. But if you really think about what a paradigm is and our belief system and what we're talking about, our beliefs make us, right? So it's just showing with the visualization and like our mind, how powerful beliefs are. I'd love if anyone want to chime in about the last thing they've manifested that believing was seeing. You're like, what? This is crazy. So who wants to share a great manifestation story?
Hey, everybody. So I just want to preface this by saying that I'm new to all of this manifestation stuff, like literally since I met this one next to me. And I'm just floored by what our minds can create. And I guess specifically, I'll just pick one example, which Brittany may have shared with you already, Lindsay. I'm sure she has. But when Brittany and I met, we quickly decided, you know, we wanted to be together like quicker than kind of a normal timeline. And so we, on paper, you know, wrote down exactly the exact place that we wanted to live, like detailed out, like a full page of bullet points of like, you know, we wanted to be like, you know, details included things like, you know, open floor plan, like views of the city, like sunlight, wood, all kinds of things. The point is that we found this place we're living now almost like it dropped out of the sky. And it's amazing because when we look back at our list, like to the detail, everything we wrote down. And so I'm just like, I think for many of you, this is like, well, duh, like this happens all the time. But for me, as someone new to this, I'm just like blown away at what we can do in terms of the quantum, you know, putting it into the quantum space of just like, you know, you write it down, you feel the energy, you put it out there. And I feel like everything that I've been doing since I've started this practice has been coming to fruition. So it's been a powerful experience.
Oh my God, I love it. That's so powerful. And by the way, I've seen your house. It's ridiculous. I mean, they're overlooking the San Francisco Bridge. And yeah, so
Hey, you got to come visit.
Yeah, you guys, yeah.
I'm road trip USA. I'm coming up north. I love it.
I just have to say too, like he says that he's new to this, but you were doing it before without even realizing it, because one of the things is he kind of shared with, it's okay if I share about us?
Sure.
Okay. So so we actually both feel like we manifested each other too, because he didn't know it was manifestation or, you know, whatever you want to call it, but he wrote his like list of his person, right? And then then he shared that with me after we met and committed to each other, and it was pretty wild because it was me to a T. And I did the same for him, so that was pretty cool.
And just to finish, now I've like, what else can we manifest here, people? You know, like, can we change the like structure of society just by, I mean, like, I'm like, if everyone is awakened and starts manifesting, what is the power of that?
You know, Brittany and I
By
talk
the way,
about this all the time, right? We're creating a new ecosystem, a new way of being.
Yeah, and I really like how Toby was talking about what are we plugging into? Like, what are we connecting to? And I think that when I think about what it means to awaken or what is spirituality, I think that for me, it feels like connection and what we intentionally choose to connect to, connecting to ourselves, connecting to each other, connecting to the earth, and connecting to source. And that it's kind of like plugging in. And like you said, Lindsay, it's an ecosystem, which is why I love that your first picture was the mushroom, the picture of the mushroom, and thinking about mycelium and the network of connections that we see in nature. So yeah, just throwing that out there. But yeah, thanks for letting us share.
So a lot of this material right here comes from Greg Braden. I'm a huge fan of Greg. I've been following him for a very long time. If you're not subscribed to the Gaia channel, I highly recommend it. I've been watching that. When it first came out, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is on mainstream. But anyway, so he really is one of my favorite, very Renaissance kind of man. So he talks about just the evolvement of science, and, you know, like science and quantum physics is all about the study of energy, right? And he was saying in the 80s, like, you know, at that time, the scientists actually thought, like, you know, there was empty space around us. We can only see 4% of the universe. So that's mind blowing when you think about that most of our universe is invisible, right? But now we know, like, what the field that we'll talk about that as well. So he talks about the reflective reality in this space, right? This divine matrix, this quantum field, this holographic universe, entanglement, you know, even heard it called the morphic field, Akashic records. There is information that just surrounds us and that we're dipping into, especially now that we know, like, you know, Rita shared with her secret way to tap into this universe to manifest, right? So there's like different codes and different ways to work with it as we kind of learn more about it. And a field of energy. So like everything is in a cycle, right? So if something when an event is set in motion, a pattern will repeat. Something needs to change that pattern, right? So especially like if you had a traumatic experience or, you know, a traumatic childhood, something of that nature, right? You're in this feedback loop. So something needs to change that pattern. And now with all this wisdom and knowledge and even just learning how to dip into the fields, we really can understand where we are in the cycle. And we don't have to be a victim to the cycle. One of my favorite topics is language. I've been studying language, especially when I did Kundalini teacher training. We spent quite a bit of time studying languages, and it really rocked my world, just beyond linguistics, but really understanding that language creates our worlds. I believe that we're here to create, right? We're talking about manifestation and creating, and language. There's a deep biological trigger, right? And these neurons that support us for this creation with language. We're creating, this is how we create things, right? And then studying like languages like Sanskrit and Hebrew, which are more holier, right? And this is like maybe you know, especially studying chanting and those harmonics and those frequencies. So we're talking about the English language just being a language of communication and how we can manifest with that. But I just feel like in our society, we're very like casual and nonchalant about our language versus something more of like a holier kind of like a chant or, you know, a spell or whatever you're kind of doing with these different languages. So it's interesting too, learning about English language is like how it's built upon separation with I and we. Benjamin Lee Whorf, back in the 1940s, he was an American linguist, and he studied the Hopi tribe, and it's fascinating. I mean, it was like mid-century, right? And he is learning like this tribe actually only speaks in present tense. They speak in we, and their whole perception on life is very different than, you know, us in America here with the English language. So really, you know, be careful with your words. They create your world. So I love that. Okay. So it's also how we think about each other, right? And there is a harmonic with language. So like, you know, you could say something, oh, you look gorgeous, and you're just trying to be nice and you really don't mean that. Like it's not going to match up. So it's even like if you're like, oh, you say an affirmation, I'm a billionaire, but it really doesn't resonate with you, you're actually going to promote more scarcity, right? So you really have to just think about the harmonics of your language and what you're creating. The world is a reflection of our word, and it's always feeding into the matrix, right? So our beliefs are like what we're saying. You know, when Trump was elected, like all of that astro junk that was just going into the field, the anger, and just a lot of that energy, right? So those words, and everyone kind of just, it was such an angry period, I feel like, with COVID, and just a very pressure time. So all of that is feeding into the matrix. Our language is our interface to our programming. So really just having more reverence for language and what it can do for us. Which piggybacks off the mystery of time. So I love time, like John Wheeler, a physicist, and Alan Watts, a British philosopher, way back in the day, mid-century. I believe Alan Watts was like more 1970s, but again, leading edge. And, you know, they really speak about that we don't see everything at the same time. So like the universe reveals itself on a collective level and on an individual level, right? Like when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. So I think we also experience that on a collective level as well, right? But like time, like what is time? So it's a background software for our operating system. But when we get heart-centered, the heart is universal, right? So when you travel, you don't speak a language, but you're in your heart, like you really can speak to people non-verbally. It's just fascinating. You know, animals do that all the time, right? And so with the human emotion, time does not exist. So when you're really in that heart center, and according to the simulation theory, time is a program over an operating system. This is the divine matrix. So this is a part of our program. The heart-brain coherence. This is such a beautiful, I love that science is studying this with heart math, and they can actually just track the heart energy. So when the heart and the brain are in coherence, so this is not the heart as like an organ, but more like the heart chakra, like the and just feeling into the heart, the meridian, or the different languages for that. But you can feel the sensation, and you know, and Greg always talks about getting into a state of appreciation or gratitude and feeling that, and then how to get in coherence with the heart and brain, with your mind. And there's compelling evidence to suggest that this is what couples us to a field of information, this divine matrix. This is where the manifestations is, right? The infinite possibilities. It's not bound by the classical limits of time and space. So this is like when you meditate, right? And you're trying to get into these different brainwave states, it's all about focus, right? It's like you can't let those thoughts. So that's disruptive energy when you're in chaos. And so just really powerful. And then more for like just to know where we're coming from, again, this Newtonian physics, and just like not doing this kind of work, not meditating, not focused, just kind of being, not deliberately creating, just kind of flopping around. You start breaking down, especially after like 35, your matter trying to change matter. And this is Newtonian physics again, where it's like you're really in the material world. You know, you want to buy a house, so you save up for 30 years, you have a pension plan, you're just on this linear timeline, and you're just matter trying to move matter. But this is when your digestive system starts to break down. And I was thinking about the show The Golden Girls. It's like those ladies were in their 50s, and the new 50, I mean, the contrast is so spectacular, where it's like we're dipping into this awareness, and this is reverse aging. I mean, the stuff that we're doing. So our body does not break down the same. And, you know, studying monks and people of indigenous tribes of sorts. So we can see it as a reality. So telomeres, if you don't know about that, please start studying that. Again, after 35, those lay dormant. This is the secret sauce to reverse aging. It's brilliant. You find your secret sauce, your recipe, and don't share your age and you'll rock it. So you don't have to biologically get old, only chronological. That's it. So that that's my shtick. This is so powerful. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between real versus fabricated. This is the secret, right? The real secret. So you really, the visualization, I was talking about the imagination, we're talking about our manifestations. So you really can, as as Brittany and Sean were saying, like they put a house on paper and then it showed up, right? So they felt it, they saw it, they tasted, they believed it, and then it just came out of thin air, right? It collapsed out of the field, and here they are. So this is very Joe Dispenza, if you're familiar, one of my huge teachers. He has saved my life many times. So he talks about thoughts being the language of the brain, feelings being emotion of the body, right? We live in the past, our body lives in the past. So we have to do this kind of work to get out of the past and evolve and move. So where you have a neurological hardware, we're learning the formula. So learning, you have to keep learning to make these synaptic connections, but then you have to be able to explain it. It's not, you can't just, sit with me today, learn this. You really have to practice it over and over again to make these new neural pathways, right? And this is what meditation does, but not just meditating. I think people don't really understand meditation sometimes too, or they say, I can't meditate. It's all BS. You can meditate. It's a sensation. You have to tune in, you have to focus, and we're all wired. We're all connected. So everyone as a level playing field, we all have access to this. So according to Joe, who I love, quantum physics, neuroscience, and epigenetics really talking about we override our DNA. It's fascinating. Back in the day, in the old paradigm, you had DNA, you had gene expression. That's what you were dealt. So powerful to know that we can rewire our neurological hardware at any age. You don't have to be you don't have to be young to do this kind of work. And then with, I think the gift of this kind of wisdom and what science has proven, and it's all experiential too. You'll feel it, you'll see it. We're all talking about our stories. There's no superstition. It's not magic. It's just kind of a way of being. I think back in the day, it was superstition, it was magic. And it's like, oh, wait, this isn't magic. This is just the way we're supposed to live life. What happened? So that's kind of how I look at it. I love this. This is from Abraham Hicks. So this is so empowering as you really understand your emotions. This is like a quick check-in though, to see kind of like when you're going upward or downward and where you are on it. So what I love too is like, if you are feeling like fear and depression, if you start feeling anger, you're actually going in the right direction. Like you want to like start moving up this scale, but you're not going to go from depression all the way to joy. That's just, you're going to have to move yourself, inch your way, like keep it real. And if you're not feeling joy, it's like, I'm learning like not to be hard on myself. It's like this scale really helps me just check in. Where am I at on my litmus test of emotions? So I know just kind of how to move up or down with affirmations or things, but not pushing myself all the way to be this fake happy and to spiritual bypass anything, all my timelines. So Dr. Joe talks about this as well. So just to go a little deeper, this is from Brian Scott, who really does a great job of consolidating a lot of these concepts as well. I've been following him a bit too now. So timeline jumping, what does that mean? So I love this. I think this is so fun. I mean, you can look at it from different angles, but again, I'm showing it in a quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum theory kind of perspective, because I just think it's so empowering, especially for our Western minds. And then you can kind of couple it or look at it from other different lenses as well, more like Eastern traditions and other kind of, or magic or other kind of occultish text or Gnostic text or that kind of nature. So you can move into timelines that match the reality of who you are. So yeah, wherever you're feeling like on that emotional scale, that's a harmonic, that's a frequency. So that's going to move you into a timeline. But any time now with this wisdom is like, we can move into a new timeline, and we just have to know like how to get there. So it's brilliant. So also fear, like dealing with fear as we move into the unfamiliar, because it takes a lot of circuitry, it takes a lot of transition, at least from my experience and others that I work with. It takes a lot to come into the unknown, because we really crave consistency and the known, right? So if you really just learn how to work with fear and know fear is your friend and how to work with it, it's super powerful. It's so amazing. And you just let it kind of like observe it, but let it flow in it. It turns into something just miraculous. So no, fear is your friend. And so this is another one, again, just to piggyback off timelines. It's like wherever you are, this is the most powerful thing. I think, we think we have to like do all this work. Like I said earlier about my own journey, is like, there's a checklist, you're here, you get there. That's the old paradigm now. It's like wherever you are, you're going down a rabbit hole. I was thinking like, people are flipping me off in the car, all the lights are turning red, people are being angry at me, I'm getting weird emails. It's like, stop, you're in the wrong timeline. And then you can start, you move, you're like, okay, there's some kind of vibration going on. So you can keep moving into a new timeline, a new time to wake up from the dream, to realize we're in the story, and to choose the script for the life we intend to live. So many people, I see it maybe because I'm just so aware to it, but yeah, we're all talking about this, like how to rewrite the script and how to rewrite our new, and I feel like ever since I started going down this journey, the universe just keeps supporting it. Because as we talked about earlier, I'm so focused on this work. I'm teaching it now. I have clients, I have case studies, and it's like, oh my God, this is becoming my reality, or it is my reality. But it's just to know, like, we can rewrite our script at any time, and it takes the density out of life. It's really gorgeous. Okay. So the new you, what will you look at differently today after this? And if you could answer one of these questions or kind of blend them all together, but I was just curious, like, what intrigued you? What do you want to learn more? What do you already know, but it's been a while? Or maybe none of this resonates with you. So if anyone wants to chime in.
I want to learn more about everything.
What intrigued you?
Oh, a lot of it. I look forward to, I might even watch it again because like learning about the telomeres and more about like the concept of the mind, the feelings being the emotions of the body. The mind is the language of, there was some wording I wanted to go back and look at and learn more about. Yeah. A lot of it though, like everything. So I want to watch it again.
Yeah, this is just a teaser, and I'm going to share all my references with you too. So I want to get everyone curious and excited about it. So thank you. Anybody else want to share any feedback, thoughts so far?
I'll share because I do have to leave in a couple minutes, but I just want to say this was amazing. And for me, this really felt like what you said, Linz, of I've heard a lot of this before, and we have a lot of the same teachers and whatnot. So it was really this repetition, and knowing that every time I receive and interact with this information, it hits me differently and is going to give me exactly what I need at this point in time. And I also felt like that first question of, do we create our own reality, is very, very powerful, because it allows you to check in on your belief on that, which is kind of the base belief, it feels like, for everything else. It's like, how much do you believe that you create your own reality? So kind of just getting in alignment with that belief, I think, is critical of like where you actually want to be.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming today. I appreciate it as well. I wanted to give you guys the journey first and then just talk about kind of the things that I've been doing. Some of you know that I started a business years ago, the New Paradigm Finance. This is when I started it. Then I joined a startup working with these principles, but being more involved in that. And then after I got them up and running after a year, I kind of leveled up and now I'm scaling the business. And now it's called LA Woman Executive Coaching, really kind of fine tuning what I did like, what I didn't like. And I started new case studies as well for a longer duration. I gave you bits and pieces about me, just my background. Even though it's LA Woman, yes, I live in Los Angeles, but my initials are LA. I don't have a middle name. Traditional offerings, as well as kind of this new science and then this new edge. So I have an integrative approach to entrepreneurship. And so what that means is depending on your needs and what we want to work on and what your goal is and your vision, I work with people on all different levels versus just kind of leveling up in life and their career to wanting to start a business or, you know, a new relationship with money and scared of money and want to track their finances and they want to learn accounting. But first we work on, you know, their belief system. So I have a whole kind of framework that I've been working on for many years. I believe we're here for a renaissance, renaissance being rebirth in French. I love that word. It's sexy. I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have Botticelli. My dog's name is Botticelli. It's Bo. And I think we're here for that new Renaissance experience and a new paradigm. But that's, to me, I'm definitely a Renaissance woman. I'm use my right and my left brain. I'm logical and I'm a dreamer. I'm a pioneer, like many of you. And so we're here to create a new way of being. It's just fast. I just love the word Renaissance, though. And again, using cutting edge science, you got to dip into the science piece, my traditional business offerings. So really just at a executive level, I'm a Pepperdine as well. We'll have to talk about that. I'm in the executive MBA program. I love it. It's really showing me new frameworks, what's out there. It's a very evolved school. It's a Christian school, and I love that. It's very, they're very open-minded, though. I'm very surprised about it. So really taking a lot of that in right now, and even working with our physics department too, to level up and kind of see how I can work with some of them as well while I build this business out. And really my main goal, though, especially like, I mean, I became an accountant a while ago. I actually was studying accounting books while I was in the military. I was like, what do I want to do when I grow up and get out of the military? And I was on duty. We have these duties. When I was in station in Korea, like 24 hours on guard duty. And I took out accounting books and I was like, oh my God, numbers are so magical. I want to learn debits and credits. I was so excited. I thought it was so fun. I would just balance my checkbook. Back in the day, we call it checkbooks, right? Nothing was really online yet at that level. But I did have Microsoft Money and Quicken at the time too. I was always tracking money. I thought it was fun. I loved it. And but then I got into the real world after I got out of the military. I was like, okay, Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street. It's novelty. It was fun. It was, and then it wasn't. It was like, it really kind of just, it took the fun out of numbers and accounting and just a lot of things we were talking about. So I really was like, I want to be the Tony Robbins of accounting. I really want to show people the power of numbers, how fun it is. And breathe new life into entrepreneurship. I love business. I went through an existential crisis for a while. I was going to move to Peru. But then instead I moved to California and I started this business. So there's that. I was like, capitalism, like I love what Toby said earlier. She's spot on. So it was like what we focus on, where we're coming out of, and just seeing it, but like we're here to level it up and how we can use it and instead of going against the current. So I want to play now. What I do with clients, I work collaboratively with them. We go on journeys together. It's very intuitive, but it's very customized, and there's deliverables, there's homework, so there's a lot of frameworks. So it's really just that dance that we do, and it's just been amazing. So I have an amazing case study right now that we're gonna just do a documentary together. So I'll, if you're on my newsletter, I'll share with you her journey. We're gonna do interviews, and we're gonna do a full documentary at the end of her journey. So good. Any other feedback, questions, answers? Or just like any tidbits, anything you guys want to share before we leave?
Thank you, Lindsay, for bringing us all together. And thank you for the beautiful way that you have brought all of this, orchestrated all of this really interesting material. And I also adore your graphics. Lovely presentation.
Thank you, love.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, Linz.
Thanks so much, Lindsay.
Thank
That was
you.
amazing.
Good
Okay.
hearing from
Loved it.
everyone.
Inspiring.
Cause you're a sky, cause you're a sky full of stars. I'm gonna give you my heart. Cause you're a sky full of stars.